if you take one person and add them to another person, what do you get?
2, usually.
Right. I mean, basic arithmetic tells us the answer is 2. It's clean, it's binary, it totally ignores human emotion. But, if you've ever tried to assemble flat-pack furniture with a partner.
Oh, yeah. The worst.
Right. Or, say, sat in a really bloated corporate strategy meeting, the real answer is rarely just 2. Because sometimes putting 2 humans together literally results in 0, like we just subtract from each other.
Yeah, and that unpredictable math, that's actually the entire foundation of what we're unpacking today.
Let's get into it.
So we are looking at this really short but highly provocative essay. It's titled The Value and Significance of Division of Labor.
Catchy?
Yeah, written by an author named Su Feng, published back on January 30th, 2023. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore how this text takes, well, basically a sledgehammer to that simple equation of 1 + 1.
Right.
He uses it to quantify the true cost of human friction.
And what makes this text so compelling to me is just the sheer scale of the argument. Like, it escalates so fast.
Oh, absolutely.
The author starts us off at the absolute micro level, just the mundane reality of 2 people arguing over, household chores.
Who does the dishes?
Exactly. And then he uses that exact same logic to build this incredibly controversial utopian blueprint for a completely borderless, globally integrated planet.
Which is quite the leap. So we really need to evaluate this theory in phases. The author constructs this conceptual ladder, basically.
Okay, lay it out for us.
The bottom rungs are what we might call the friction phase. That focuses on the psychological and practical traps of redundant human effort. And then from there, we climb into the synergy phase.
Makes sense.
And finally, we make this massive leap into macroeconomics and global societal design.
So for you, the listener, I want you to actively audit your own life as we walk through these phases. Think about the teams you lead or the colleagues you work with, or even just the person you share a living space with.
Yeah, everyone has someone.
Right. Ask yourself, at what point does adding another human to your equation stop being a liability and actually start becoming an asset?
It's a great question.
So let's start at the absolute bottom of the author's mathematical barrel. He wants to establish the baseline of human inefficiency with this seemingly impossible equation. 1 + 1 = 0.
Yeah, 1 + 1 euro. And the author lays out a very specific scenario to justify this. Imagine 2 people living together under one roof. But the critical failure here is that there is absolutely no division of labor.
None at all.
None. 0. Whether a task is massive, like, I don't know, repairing the roof, or tiny, like washing a single coffee mug, they attempt to do everything together simultaneously.
Wait, so there's no delegation. There's no
Yeah.
I'll handle the kitchen, you handle the yard.
Nope, none of that.
It's just a constant overlapping swarm of effort. I mean, I think of 2 people trying to drive a car at the exact same time.
That's a perfect analogy. Like, you have your hands on the steering wheel, but my hands are also grabbing the wheel. You're pushing the gas, I'm riding the brake. The physical and mental energy being expended is massive, but the forward momentum is literally 0.
Exactly. And the psychological toll is really what the text highlights here. Because these 2 people are doing everything together without a plan, they're just busy from dawn until dusk.
Exhausting.
Right. They leave themselves 0 time for leisure or study or self-improvement. And, human beings naturally have differing personalities and differing methods.
For sure.
So this constant forced proximity just leads to inevitable disaster.
Right.
They criticize each other's methods, they nitpick, the time and energy are completely consumed by pointless arguments about how to do the task,
Yeah.
rather than, actually completing it.
So they just spin their wheels?
Yeah. Therefore, their combined life accomplishment = 0. 1 + 1 = 0. I mean, that makes total sense from a psychological standpoint. The cognitive load of having to negotiate every single micro step of a task with another person that would drain your energy before the task even gets started.
Oh, absolutely.
But let's change the variables for a second. What if those 2 people actually get along? Like, what if there's no nitpicking?
Okay, I see where you're going.
Yeah, like they are just 2 incredibly agreeable individuals who still refuse to divide the labor, but they do it peacefully. What happens then?
Well, the author anticipates that exact scenario, actually, and it brings us to his second equation, 1 + 1 = 1.
Okay, 1 + 1 = 1.
Yeah, you still have 2 people living together, and they're still both applying their hands to that same steering wheel you mentioned. But as you suggested, the internal conflict is gone. They actually agree on how to steer.
Sure, so they aren't fighting anymore. But the redundancy is still staggering. You basically have two people doing a one-person job.
Precisely. Because they are both applying their full effort to a task that honestly only requires a single human, their combined result simply equals what one person could have accomplished entirely alone in an empty room.
Wow.
Yeah, there is no synergy whatsoever. One person's energy is completely redundant. The piece is kept, yes, but the human potential is entirely wasted. So 1 + 1 = 1.
You see this in the corporate world constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Think about modern knowledge work. You get invited to a 1-hour meeting where 5 people are assigned to a task that really only requires one focused person.
Oh, the classic meeting that could have been an email.
Exactly. Everyone gets along, the meeting is super pleasant, everyone nods in agreement. But the actual output generated in that room is just the output of one person. The other 4 people aren't subtracting value, but they are just comfortable redundancies.
Comfortable redundancies, I like that. And those first two equations, equaling 0 and equaling 1, they represent what happens when we ignore the fundamental necessity of dividing labor. It's the baseline of stagnation. To actually move forward, the text shifts us into the realm of functional productivity. We arrive at 1 + 1 = 2.
Finally, the moment the math actually reflects reality. So how does the author frame this one?
This is basically the beginning of coexistence. 1 + 1 = 2 happens when two people live together, but they actively choose to do their own thing.
They stay out of each other's way.
Exactly. They don't interfere with one another. There's no overlapping effort. But crucially, there is also no collaboration. The result is the achievement of exactly two people working in total isolation, just sharing a geographic location.
Parallel play.
Yeah.
Like, we share an apartment, but we have different shelves in the refrigerator. We wash our own individual dishes. We're just living parallel lives.
Right. Roommates who barely speak.
Yeah. We aren't dragging each other down to zero, but we certainly aren't elevating each other either. It's a stable system, but it feels like the ceiling is pretty low.
Because it is. It's highly suboptimal. The actual magic of human cooperation, according to the author, only begins with the next equation. 1 + 1 = 3.
Ah, okay, the threshold of synergy.
Yes.
So at what point do we generate that extra +1 out of thin air?
Well, it occurs when those same two people live together, but now they deliberately divide their responsibilities. They cooperate seamlessly by working on specific specialized tasks. They stop existing in parallel and start functioning as a system.
The classic example is a busy restaurant kitchen.
Oh, definitely.
If you and I are both trying to chop the same onion and stir the same pot of soup, we are at a 0 or a 1. But if we create a division of labor, an assembly line, where you specialize in prepping the raw ingredients and I specialize in manning the grill, our output skyrockets.
Because you aren't bumping into each other.
Exactly. By dividing the labor, we remove the cognitive switching penalty. You don't have to stop chopping to check the grill, and I don't have to leave the grill to chop. We get into a flow state, and suddenly, together, we produce food significantly faster than 3 people working individually in separate kitchens.
Yeah, that flow state, or the removal of the cognitive switching penalty you just mentioned, that generates its own momentum. That is the emergent property. That is the extra +1.
Okay, so 1 + 1 = 3 makes total sense to me. It's literally the foundation of the Industrial Revolution. Henry Ford proved it on the assembly line.
He certainly did.
But as I read ahead in the source material, this is where the text takes a very sudden, I'd say radical turn. The author doesn't just stop at 3. He bypasses 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. He jumps straight to what he considers the ultimate multiplier.
He takes a massive leap. He leaps to 1 + 1 = 9.
1 + 1 = 9. I mean, that seems less like a study of efficiency and more like pure utopian theory.
Yeah.
What are the specific required conditions to hit a 9x multiplier?
Well, the text is actually unapologetic about how difficult this is. To achieve 1 + 1 = 9, the environment must be flawless.
Flawless.
Flawless. Two people living together must have a clear, absolute division of all tasks. They must share entirely common goals. And most importantly, there can be absolutely 0 internal conflicts.
Wow. 0.
Yeah. By playing perfectly to each person's specific strengths, refining the tasks continuously, and doing it without a single ounce of interference or ego, the result is the output of 9 separate individuals.
Let's interrogate that mechanism for a second, because 1 + 1 = 9 sounds incredible on paper.
It does.
But practically speaking, how do you eliminate all internal friction? I mean, human nature is inherently messy. Our interests naturally overlap, our energy levels fluctuate, our egos clash. Is the author implying that humans need to act like programmable machines to achieve this?
Not exactly. The author uses this extreme multiplier more as a provocation. He isn't necessarily saying you will hit a perfect 9 every Tuesday.
Right.
He directly challenges the reader to audit their current living situation, specifically pointing to the dynamic between a couple sharing a life. He wants you to ask, are you actively pursuing this level of frictionless synergy, or are you trapped in a cycle of redundancy and ego? It's a micro-level diagnostic tool.
But he doesn't intend for us to just use this for marriage counseling,
Yeah.
right? Because this is where the scope of the essay expands massively.
Exactly. This is the pivotal transition in the text. The author argues that the macro is simply a reflection of the micro. If the 1+1=9 formula is the ideal for a two-person household, the logical next step is to scale this exact same mathematical framework to entire industries, economies, and eventually the entire global society.
So we are shifting drastically from microproductivity to macroeconomics.
We are.
The text states that whether it's 2 people, 100 people, 10,000 people, or the entire population of Earth, the greatest achievement always comes from dividing tasks and eliminating overlap. And to make this leap concrete, the author brings in a heavy industry example. He talks about building airplanes.
Yeah, the airplane analogy. The text argues that if tasks on a societal level aren't clearly defined, you get systemic, catastrophic redundancy. The author paints a picture of a world where, quote, you are building airplanes, I am also building airplanes, and he is also building airplanes.
So we've taken the 1+1=1 scenario,
Yeah.
2 people fighting over the same steering wheel, and basically blown it up to a planetary scale. It's like 3 separate utility companies deciding to dig up the exact same street in a major city to lay down 3 completely different power grids just to see who can get the residents to sign up for their electricity.
Which sounds insane when you put it like that.
Right. I mean, it might be great for the winning company, but from a macro perspective, it is a staggering waste of copper, asphalt, and human labor.
And that concept of waste is the central pillar of the author's macro critique. Because the scenario you just described, the multiple power grids, the overlapping airplane manufacturers, that is the fundamental definition of free market competition.
The system that drives the vast majority of the global economy today.
Yeah. And the author holds a very nuanced yet ultimately damning view of it. He doesn't ignore the realities of capitalism. The text readily concedes that competition can result in lower costs, increased efficiency, and higher quality products.
Okay, I see where you're going, but there's a massive counter-argument coming from the author, isn't there?
A structural one, yes. The author firmly argues that these benefits come at an unacceptable systemic cost. He states that competition inherently leads to an enormous waste of resources.
Right.
We celebrate the winning airplane manufacturer, sure, but we completely ignore the graveyard of wasted steel, fuel, and human hours expended by the companies that lost the competition. Because of this, he concludes the competitive model is simply not worth it.
But he doesn't just stop at wasted steel. The phrase that really stuck out of the text to me was moral degradation.
Yeah.
He claims competition causes moral degradation.
Yes, that's a key point.
Let's unpack the psychology of that for a second. If the global system is built on competition, it inherently means it's a zero-sum game. If my company's survival requires your company to go out of business, the system forces me to view you as an obstacle rather than an ally.
And that is the crucial insight. The friction of competition doesn't just waste materials, it erodes our empathy. It pits humanity against itself. If we are constantly guarding our trade secrets, undercutting our rivals, and fighting for market share, we are perpetually stuck at 1+1 = on a global scale.
Wow.
We are burning all our energy fighting over the steering wheel of the planet.
Which raises a massive question about the author's proposed alternative. If competition is fundamentally toxic because it wastes resources and degrades our morals, is the author suggesting a completely unified, monopolized global system? Like, is he saying there should only be one single globally recognized entity that builds all the airplanes?
Yes. If you follow his logic of absolute division of labor to its extreme utopian conclusion, that is exactly what it requires. By cooperating seamlessly without interference on a global scale, you eliminate the redundancy of competing companies. You achieve the 1+1=9 multiplier for the entire human race.
But wait, let's look at the mechanism there. If you have no competition, if there's only one global entity building airplanes, what drives the innovation to build a better airplane?
That's the classic critique.
Right, because historically, monopolies breed stagnation. Without the threat of going out of business, why would this unified group ever improve their designs?
That is the friction point in the author's theory, and it requires a profound shift in human motivation. The text implies that in this utopian state, the motivation to innovate shifts away from financial survival and market dominance.
To what then?
Instead, innovation is driven by a shared moral duty and a collective desire for human progress. You build a better airplane not to crush a rival, but because a better airplane serves the unified global community better.
It's fascinating. We literally started by analyzing why roommates argue over who washes the coffee mugs. And using that exact same underlying logic, we are now advocating for the total dismantling of global industrial competition.
I know, and we haven't even reached the final vision yet. The author takes this monopolized division of labor and projects it onto the political map of the world. What does the planet actually look like if we maximize this theory?
What is the ultimate payoff of the 1 plus 1u equation at a planetary scale?
Well, the author describes it as a golden age. The text claims that if humanity universally adopts this precise division of tasks and responsibilities, massive global shifts will naturally occur.
Like what?
First, wars will completely cease. War, in this framework, is simply the ultimate, bloodiest form of resource-wasting competition.
That tracks.
Second, the depletion of the Earth's natural resources will be halted, social turmoil will vanish, and perhaps most radically, the text states that border controls between countries will no longer be necessary.
The completely borderless world.
Absolutely zero borders.
Yeah.
The author envisions an era of complete global integration. Think about it through his mathematical lens. If everyone on Earth is part of one unified, perfectly divided labor system working toward a common goal, national borders become entirely illogical.
They're just arbitrarily dividing the labor force.
Right. They would be as absurd as drawing a line in chalk down the middle of a two-person apartment and refusing to cross it to hand your roommate a towel.
That is a staggering vision of a frictionless globe. No passports, no national militaries, just shared global resources.
Huh.
But, the essay doesn't just paint this picture and walk away.
Yeah.
The author provides a highly specific vehicle for how humanity is supposed to transition into this state.
He does. In the final concluding paragraph of the text, the author introduces a very specific ideological claim. He states that to achieve this ideal fictionless state, currently only what he calls the Lifechanyuan values and the second home model can bear such a heavy responsibility.
Okay, we definitely need to pause here and define this jargon because he drops these terms right at the end. What exactly is the second home model in the context of this essay's goal?
Based on the logical requirements of his essay Erasing Borders, Ending Competition, Sharing Resources, the second home model, guided by Lifechanyuan values, implies a global communal structure. Yes, it is a system that would fundamentally reorganize society by stripping away traditional isolated family units and private resource hoarding. Instead, communities operate collectively. Wealth and resources are pooled, work is distributed according to ability, and the need for individual competition is structurally removed. It is the practical, physical manifestation of his 1 plus 1 and 9 theory.
So it's not just a polite suggestion to collaborate more at the office. It's a literal call to entirely dismantle private ownership and individualistic society in favor of a unified global commune.
Correct. The author believes that without a profound structural and spiritual shift, which he locates in this specific model, the math will just never work.
Okay, before we wrap up, we need to explicitly state something for you, our listener. As part of our deep dive framework, our role is strictly analytical here.
Yes, absolutely.
We are impartially dissecting the mechanics of the author's argument. We do not take a side on the political, economic, or social viability of dismantling global borders, nor are we endorsing the Lifechanyuan values or the communal second home model.
Right. Our job is just to show you the architecture of the author's thought process. We are simply conveying his deeply held belief that the journey from 0 to 9 requires this specific ideological vehicle to become a reality.
Exactly. So let's recap the conceptual ladder we just climbed. We started in the messy, frustrating trap of 1 plus 1 NO, where overlapping effort and psychological friction create nothing but exhaustion.
The roommate phase.
Right. Then we explored the baseline of coexistence, moving up to the synergy of 1 plus 1E3, where division of labor creates an assembly line of productivity.
The restaurant kitchen.
Yeah. And then we examined the author's massive conceptual leap to the utopian 1 plus 1 and 9, applying it to global capitalism. The author argues that competition is a zero-sum game that inherently causes moral degradation by turning humans into obstacles, and proposes replacing it with a borderless communal planet.
It is an incredibly comprehensive framework. It really forces us to question our most basic assumptions about how we work together, how our economies are built, and what the ultimate goal of human society ought to be.
And that brings me back to you. Audit your own life today. Look at the projects you manage, the household you run, the teams you collaborate with. Are you operating at a zero, grinding your gears and fighting over the steering wheel? Are you at a comfortable but redundant two? Or are you actively finding ways to divide labor, reduce friction, and push toward that elusive nine?
And as you audit your teams, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building directly on the author's ultimate vision.
What's that?
Well, the text argues passionately that eliminating competition entirely will stop the waste of resources and cure our moral degradation. He desires a perfectly smooth, perfectly integrated human machine, but consider the trade-off. If we actually succeed in completely eliminating all friction, all overlap, and all competition in the pursuit of perfect global efficiency, do we risk losing the spark?
The spark of friction.
Exactly. Friction isn't always just a waste of energy. Throughout history, friction has been the catalyst for fire. It is the clash of differing ideas, the messy overlap of competing visions, and the chaotic drive of individuals trying to outdo one another that so often sparks human creativity, rapid innovation, and diverse thought.
That's a great point.
It leaves us with a profound question. Does a perfectly harmonious, mathematically flawless machine leave any room at all for the messy, unpredictable, and sometimes wildly inefficient leaps of human genius?
Man, it's the ultimate paradox of human interaction.
Ugh.
We crave the absolute comfort of 1 plus 1 perfectly equaling 2. But maybe the true beauty and the true engine of our progress lies in the fact that our math is always a little bit messy.
Definitely.
Something to think about the next time you're debating global economics or just trying to decide who is going to wash the coffee mugs.